really the goal is to have a healthy, loving adult relationship with our children. And it's not to create certain outcomes in their life or have certain things happen for them. And it's very difficult to disconnect from being attached to the outcomes in our children's lives as a parent, because we love them and we're invested in them. And we want what we think is best for them and what we think will make them happy. And yet it's so important in the relationship for us to release control and allow them to be empowered to embrace their own outcomes.
Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita, and the founder of Power Purpose Play, a global community of women in midlife. I'm here to tell you that it's your time now to rediscover what has always been inside of you and bring that out into the world. If you're wondering what's next, but don't know quite what that is, or if you feel a twinge in your heart telling you that you have so much more to do and so much more to offer, you're in the right place. Ask yourself, if not now, when? Do you want to leave your job, start your own business, take control of your health, reignite the passion in your marriage, write that book, or at least that first chapter? Transitions like this can be daunting, but through listening to my story and interviews with incredible women every week, I hope to inspire you to take action. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and the founder of Power Purpose Play. We are a global platform which is dedicated to advancing the personal growth and inner power of women in midlife. Our goal is to help you rediscover yourself as you move forward in the next chapter of your life. To that end, I interview incredible women every week who will serve as inspiration for you and who will give you the examples and advice on how to face the obstacles in your way and take that first step towards rediscovery. To that end, I'm very pleased to introduce you today to Karen Herbert. Karen is a certified professional wellness coach and the founder and CEO of Themelios Coaching. Karen specializes in helping women embrace and seize the opportunities in the empty nest transition. A mother of 3 young adults, she has a master's degree from Notre Dame and hired her husband, also a certified coach, as her first employee. She started her coaching journey as she struggled with chronic Lymes disease and battled the mental health system for her family's needs. So I'm so thrilled to have you here today, Karen. Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kavita. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. So as I normally do with all my guests, I like to understand the backstory of your story and where you're from and what kind of led you and got interested in empty nest coaching. So if you could tell me a little bit about that, that'd be great.
I'd love to. My name is Karen Herbert. I live in Minnesota with my husband. We have 3 young adult children, and it's so often the case, and it was the case for me, that I became interested in my current profession because this empty nest transition had been such a pivotal experience in my own life, both the empty nest transition and the experience of professional coaching. I was introduced to coaching when my 3 kids were in high school, and I hired my own coach because I was just experiencing numerous challenges. I had a chaotic schedule. I had chronic health issues. There were these special needs in my family. I was exhausted. And I was really struggling to look ahead and create some kind of vision for my life, for myself, moving forward. And I distinctly remember someone made a comment to me, and it was just an innocuous comment, but it's one of those innocuous comments that really goes deep and causes some deeper reflection. And they said, well, just hang in there for a few years. The kids will leave and you'll have some more bandwidth. And it was a totally accurate common. I did have more bandwidth when my kids were leaving and I was in the empty nest. But it struck me because I realized I didn't want to take that approach. I didn't want that kind of a mindset. I wanted to be present. I wanted to be engaged, but also I wanted to intentionally set a foundation for the next phase of my life, for the empty nest years. And I wanted to do it despite all of the challenges in my life that were feeling so burdensome to me. And so the question I think that came to me was, what am I waiting for? Really? What am I waiting for? And I started looking to my life in many areas and asked, well, where am I just sitting around waiting? And why do I feel so constrained? And really, why am I waiting? So I started to be a lot more intentional about carving out places in my life to create this new vision. And as I did so, I was looking around to my community, my friends, people in my area, and I noticed that many women are not intentional during this major life transition. Many of us simply do the next thing. And many of us are still waiting, and we miss those opportunities for greater vision, for major personal growth, to reconnect with ourselves and to recreate purpose in a new way. So I almost wanted to start screaming, stop, everybody, don't miss it. You have an amazing 30 years of life ahead of you, and there's so much to do and to be. And yet it's so easy to let the next years go by without bringing our power and our purpose to the world. And that's one reason that your name really resonated with me, Kavita. Just, it's about bringing that power and purpose to the world and bringing our unique gifts to make a difference for others.
That's absolutely amazing. And obviously I resonate with everything that you just said. And it's true. And firstly, congratulations for recognizing that at that moment when you could have made a choice and you could have gone along with what that person had said and waited until your kids were gone and then you had the time, or you did something about it right away. So just that in itself deserves praise. And I think just from your example and what you said is so true that so many of us in this stage, we kind of give up. And it's part of the reason, the main reason that I started Power Purpose Play. And thank you for the compliment. It's really to, and what you said very eloquently is, what am I waiting for? Why not do it now? So I really resonate with that. So thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
One of the things that we also talk about on the show a lot is you're faced with the future, and you know that you have so many things that you want to do, but you're also faced with obstacles in your way, whether those are self-imposed internal obstacles or external obstacles. And I see from your bio that you did struggle with some health issues. You mentioned that briefly. Can you tell us how you got through that, or if you have, and what kind of advice you'd give to women who may be facing obstacles that are stopping them in their path?
Hi, my friend. Kavita here. Do you often feel blocked from moving forward? We all feel that way at times. These are referred to as energy blocks. I've created a short, actionable PDF guide to help you release your negative energy blocks. Click the link in the description to download it now for free. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Yes. It's so interesting you asked that question, because I think part of what I had been experiencing so many years ago was feeling like I had these obstacles in my life, and they were keeping me from moving forward or choosing the next thing or finding a deeper purpose and mission. And the truth is, they're very real obstacles. I have chronic Lymes disease. I still have chronic Lymes disease. There are serious mental health issues in my family. We still have serious mental health issues, and I need to be very invested in those. We still have obstacles ahead of us in my family. But I think what shifted for me was feeling like they could keep me from bringing my unique, special something to the world. And at some point, I realized, yes, I have these obstacles, and many of them I will probably always be managing in my life, but they cannot stop me from bringing what I meant to bring to the world. And once I could make that shift and realization, and once I could say to myself and believe it and know it, these do not have to stop me from doing what I meant to do, then I was able to really open myself up to just very creative ways of engaging with opportunities, even in the midst of my own obstacles. And even now, I'm continuing to ask that question because I've not been treating my Lyme seriously for a bit, and now I'm having more symptoms. So how am I going to address this obstacle in light of knowing it really doesn't have to hold me back from doing what I meant to be doing?
That is so inspirational, really. And from what I hear, it's really a mindset shift. And it's really you deciding that you're not going to let this thing get in your way, and you're going to find creative ways to get around it or face that. And even though you still have them in your life, it's really about the mindset shift. And was it just a gradual thing, or was it like kind of like an awakening, like, okay, no, I know I need to handle this right now? Or was it more of a gradual realization?
I would say it was gradual. I would say it took me a couple of years to really make that transition, because usually there's deeper internal things that are underneath that. The feeling of overwhelm, the feeling of the burden, like I can't do anything to change this. There's just a number of reasons, and it's unique to each of us, why we'll end up in that position. And I remember one key thing for me was it was a certain approach that I was taking to supporting my family. And I'm the kind of person that I'm just all in. I want to seek understanding. I want to figure out what's going on. I want to find the solution, the right answer. And I just spend a lot of energy invested in that. And it serves me. It's really served my family over the years. And at the same time, there was something that was not in alignment about it. There was part of that was coming from my own past experiences of not feeling fully supported. And so you just internalize these beliefs like, I'm not supported. So there was this impulse, I have to support. They need to feel supported. And actually, it became somewhat humorous, because as I was going through the shift internally, I knew that I had this impulse, and I didn't always need to follow it, but it was very hard. So I remember I was having this conversation with my high school son, and things were chaotic. I was doing a lot, and he came to me and said, Mom, I want to do this one more extracurricular. And so I just took a deep breath. Okay. and I started to say, okay, when is it? And he said, no, Mom, I've talked to the coach involved. You are not going to be involved. I'm going to handle this extracurricular. And I said, well, are you sure? So how is this going to work? No, Mom, you don't have to take care of this. You are busy and you are sick and you are doing your business. But I kept asking him, well, but don't you need to go to certain practices? And what time are they? And maybe if you get this, then I can do this for you. He said, no, Mom. And we both started laughing, because it was this process of me having to receive what he was saying, which was, you're not supporting me in this.
Right.
And it was difficult for me. And it really goes back to my own stuff, my own internal belief system and challenges. But it was part of the shift, was me coming to terms with, I'm not going to support you in this. And that's okay. That's okay.
That's a great realization, because we've always played these roles that's just what we're used to. Right. And to think that maybe they don't need me as much, or my roles are shifting. It's hard. It takes a while. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I really want to get into your specialty in terms of empty nest coaching. And you have a community, and specifically with women in midlife who have children who are leaving the nest. So what would you say are some of the common issues faced by women in your community as their children fly away?
Yes. Well, it's very interesting. I like to think of it as there's a number of common tangible issues. And then the longer that I've worked with women in this transition, there's also some very common internal issues. A little bit like what I was saying earlier, is there's the external issues, and then there's what's going on with me internally. So definitely the issues include this changing nature of our relationship with our young adult as they're transitioning into emerging adulthood. It's huge, because it's a huge relationship shift and mindset shift around that. And many people have questions about now their relationship with their spouse or partner. What are my goals now? What is my vision? And in this area, it's very easy to have some complacency. A lot of times, again, people are just waiting for problems to arise rather than creating a vision for what they want that relationship to look like. And many times our other relationships are shifting because our kids have shifted, and sometimes their activities are some of our core relationships. So women say, well, my social circles are shifting, and so how do I make new friends? So there's all the relationship issues. And there's also all of the purpose and meaning issues, because so much of our energy is invested in our family. It's been such a large part of our purpose. So reconnecting with ourselves, who we are, and reconnecting with our purpose is huge. Sometimes we don't even remember what we like or what engages us, or some women need just to take the time to relearn how to make wishes and goals for themselves. As I think you've put it, Kavita, learning how to dream again when we've forgotten how to dream.
Right.
And then there's just the nature of the transition itself, right? We're letting go of something. It's an ending. There's a loss. There's emotions involved, and allowing ourselves to be changed in the transition so that we can enter into something new and explore the new possibilities. So those are a lot of the tangible issues that women face. And then as we dig into those, kind of these deep dive issues come up, like undercurrents of guilt and self-judgment instead of self-compassion. Self-compassion has turned out to be an enormous support to almost every woman that I've worked with. Also, just long held negative beliefs about ourselves that we haven't had time to process because we've been so busy in the mix of life. There's often even just a lack of confidence in themselves and what's possible for them in the next phase of life. And it can be very hard to even see amazing possibilities ahead. So there's a lot there.
Yes. And we don't even think about all this stuff. And as you were listing all these things, changing personalities, what are my goals, relationship shifting, how do I make new friends, reconnecting with our purpose, all these things, guilt, self-judgment. Oh my God. And as women, we don't, we kind of go along and we live our lives and we don't realize, and we don't give ourselves enough credit that we are going through these things. And pause and recognize that you are going through a lot. So be kind to yourself. So I like the self-compassion piece that you mentioned as well. So that's thanks for sharing that. And I think being part of a community like yours and mine it does really help, because we have to realize that we're not alone, that we're all facing similar challenges, and especially with respect to maybe children leaving the home. So you mentioned a bit about the guilt, the mom guilt, women having, because as large part of the lives of women is looking after their kids. And then when they leave, it's like all of a sudden they're found with all this time is like you mentioned earlier, is like that role is kind of changed. And it's like, you're feeling guilty about looking after yourself, or because you're used to looking after everyone else, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that and how do we cope with this mom guilt?
Yes. It's such a huge part of the transition, the changes in our role and what that means for us. And the first thing I would say is many of us as moms, we just have developed this habit. And again, the word that's coming to me is waiting. We're waiting for everyone else to figure things out before we set agendas for ourselves. So the analogy I like to use is it's like there's this big puzzle and there's all these pieces finding their place around us. And we tend to sit back and wait for everyone else to place their puzzle pieces. And then we sort of fit ourselves into what's left over.
I love that analogy. That's great.
Well, it's interesting. Curtis and I, my husband works with me, and we really don't buy into the language around putting yourself first versus putting yourself last, because really what we want to do as moms is we just want to put ourselves in the mix. We are a piece of the puzzle. We are on the same level as everyone else. Our needs and desires matter like everyone else. We can be in the mix. We can be one of those pieces that's finding a place. I remember one client even said to me initially, well, I don't think I can start to think about what's next for me because my kids haven't quite found their place and gotten settled in life yet. So even as an empty nester, she was still waiting for her kids to place themselves before she felt like she could think about what was going to be next for her. So one of the goals we have is to help people put themselves back in the mix and start asking these really important questions about what they do want and who they do want to be. And I also think something you mentioned is so true, that it can be very weird to not be doing all those little things that we've been doing for years and years that took our time and our engagement. And there is this sense of, well, what am I supposed to be doing here? And I really caution women against just saying, well, what should I do to fill my time? And there's a lot of cultural messages around this. Oh, get a new job. If you don't work, volunteer, get a hobby. And these are all really good things, but we don't want to just fill the time. We really want to be intentional about engaging with the transition. And that means sitting through it for an appropriate amount of time so that we can reconnect with ourselves and choose the things that are right and powerful for us and not just do the next thing. And sometimes this involves challenging the expectations that other people have of what they think we should be doing now. And that can come from all angles. I was speaking with this lovely woman. She was having a conflict with her daughter. And it turned out at the root of the conflict were these expectations her daughter had of how she was going to be a grandmother and what that would look like. And the daughter's expectations weren't the same as the grandmother's desires or her own vision for her life. But it takes some work both to recognize all of these conflicting expectations, have the confidence that we ourselves can choose what we desire and what we want that to look like. And we can work with others to come to really a win-win about what all that relationship is going to look like. But there's a lot of hidden expectations to sift through.
Yes, I really love what you said, because I love especially when you said it's not just about filling the time. All of a sudden, we probably have extra time or time that we filled with taking kids to practice or wherever we're taking them or helping them with their homework or whatever it is. And then that time is freed up, I guess. And then it's like, oh my God, okay, so society expects me to fill the time with this or this and this. And I so agree with you, because unless we really figure out internally what is our true desire, maybe it's been buried for a long time. We have to reconnect with that.
Yes.
What did we love to do when we were children, for example?
Yes.
Maybe we stopped doing that because of all the other roles that we played, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we bring that out? It has to be intentional, as you said. I'm sorry, I have a little sore throat here, so I'm
You're
trying to
being
get
very brave.
Yeah, very brave. And what you said also about challenging expectations, that really resonated with me, because, for example, in my own transition, I was living a very comfortable life with the corporate world. In the corporate world, everything was going for me. And when I went through the same transition that you did, something inside of me built up and up, and I was like, now I need to listen to it. That voice became too loud. And oftentimes people closest around you don't understand what's happening. Yes. And so I think in that stage, a lot of women might say, okay, you're right. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't listen to what's inside my voice, inside my own head, mm-hmm. because I want to follow the societal expectations. So those things are, I think, very common as well. So
yes, we just can tamp it down and set it aside, try to ignore it.
Right, exactly. That's great. So you talked a little bit earlier about, and I can relate to this, about when kids become young adults, how our relationships change. And I know that I have two boys and they're 24 and 22. And if I don't adjust my relationship or how I treat them or we treat each other, it's not going to work. So, right. Because they're evolving. And sometimes as women, we don't accept the fact that they're not kids anymore. Mm-hmm. So talk to me a little bit about this changing relationships and what are some of the keys to making sure that you have a strong relationship moving forward and as adult children with mm-hmm. your kids.
Yes. Yes. Well, what you just mentioned actually is very key, which is understanding clearly what our goal is here in the relationship, and understanding that really the goal is to have a healthy, loving adult relationship with our children. And it's not to create certain outcomes in their life or have certain things happen for them. And it's very difficult to disconnect from being attached to the outcomes in our children's lives as a parent, because we love them and we're invested in them. And we want what we think is best for them and what we think will make them happy. And yet it's so important in the relationship for us to release control and allow them to be empowered to embrace their own outcomes. So our goal really does have to be very clear and specific. It's about having a healthy, loving adult relationship with them. And so there's some internal work sometimes that we have to do to release control. And then there are skills to learn. And when they've talked to young adults and done the research, there's two things that pretty much universally young adults really hate. And that creates conflict and disconnection in the relationship. And the first is feeling judged by their parents. And it's really hard because, let's be honest, they're pretty sensitive at this point in life. They're really finding themselves, they're wanting to establish their own identity. And then they are trying to find a new way to be in the family with their parents. And so it's a huge transition for them. And yet they really want our love and our acceptance. And feeling judged by us is very challenging for them. And sometimes it's not even that we are meaning to be quote unquote judgy, but if they perceive it as a judgment on them, then it will create disconnection. So it's important to listen to how our kids are perceiving our interactions with them. It's important really not to communicate kind of a judgment to them. And it's very hard. One of the ways that they feel judged is if they feel like we're being invalidating to them in their experience and their emotion. And there's about 1,000 ways to be invalidating. So simply listening, responding without judgment, asking curious questions about what's going on, rather than jumping in with all sorts of comments or opinions or advice, is really key. So the first thing they hate is judgment. The second thing they hate is unsolicited advice.
Mm.
And the skill here is that I suggest is learning to ask permission before offering advice or opinions. And it can look like, wow, that sounds like that's a really challenging situation. I have some thoughts and experiences around that. Are you open to hearing them? Is it okay if I offer a suggestion? And they might say yes, they might say no. But it's very powerful in the relationship when they say no and we respect that. They feel very honored and empowered. And actually, it makes them more likely to come and ask for our advice when they really want it. So Curtis and I just have a habit of, we always ask permission, and then we respect if they're open to receiving suggestions or advice or not.
That really resonates with me so much, because what happens is as the kids are young, we're so used to telling them kind of what to do, right?
Yes.
You should do this. You should do this. This is because, and then it's so hard to flip that switch, right? To actually say, oh no, they've got this. And I just had this recent experience with my younger son who's moved to a new city, and everything inside of me was wanted to tell him, I don't think this is the right place to go, or whatever, right? But I stopped that, because I realized that, yes, he's finding his own way, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that. The two things that they hate or don't like is feeling judged and the unsolicited advice. So I'm going to make sure that I implement those for sure, because I try to, but it's difficult, right? It kind of becomes a habit. You have to, like you said, you and Curtis do that, and asking permission. Once you start doing that, I think it becomes easier, right? But initially, do they look at you and go, why are you asking me that? Or, are you okay, Mom?
It could be surprising to them.
Oh, really? Okay.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And, they are skills. So they do take some practice. And it's good to be merciful with ourselves and remember we've been relating in a certain way for 20 years. And this is a longer transition. There's some years in here where we're in the midst of moving to a different way of relating more as a peer. And so we can allow ourselves some time to practice and to shift and to learn new ways of relating. It's completely understandable. It would take us some time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great advice. Do you also have children? Do you also coach young adults, or is it mostly the parents?
I never have, except for my own children.
Okay.
And periodically they will say to me, Mom, can you stop coaching me, please?
Okay. So I was going to say,
they've
sounded like a little bit like, okay. That's funny. That's funny. That's great. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
I just wanted to also, both you and I, our goals in our work, yours and your coaching and mine also, is really to help women find their why or their purpose. And alluded to that earlier, and that it's so important. And I believe that really there is kind of like a process that we have to go through. And maybe from your experience or from your teachings, you could give us your perspective on how do we find our why or any purpose in midlife?
Yes, you're so right. It is so critical. And there's a number of different ways out there. I know that people have their frameworks and their ways, and many of them are so useful. I just like to think of it as the root of your purpose is going to be found in who you are. It's in your values, your gifts, your strengths, your life experience, your story about what you've overcome and who you've become. So I like to think of it as there's three things. There's the who you are authentically in yourself, the what that you're doing, and why you're doing it. And there's this really intimate connection between the who and the why. So, for example, I always start with the who in working with clients and really pulling out their values, their strengths, their vision, their experiences, and also their struggles and obstacles and challenges. And their why is going to be very connected to who they are. It's almost like your purpose is bringing who you are to the world in a way that connects you to something that's larger than who you are. So it's the connection to something bigger than yourself. And the what you're doing, there can be many, many different whats that will live out a certain purpose, but you want all three of those to be aligned, the who, the why, and the what, so that you can bring your whole self into what you're choosing in a way that brings your unique contribution and connects you to the larger universe. So in a nutshell, that's how I like to think of it.
That's wonderful. And it's a great framework. And I think, as you said, I also feel that the basis is determining who you are, right? Mm-hmm. And often as women in midlife, or even as women in general, we just don't take the time to really inventory ourselves and to really look at, what am I good at? What are my skills? What do I enjoy doing? What do I value? What are all those things? And then putting them together with, what do I want to contribute to the world? And it seems a very similar concepts that I go through. And there's a concept called ikigai, which is the reason for being. And that kind of puts all these things together and looking at what is your reason for being. It's a Japanese term, which is a very interesting method of doing it as well. And one of the things I always say is that you don't have to have one purpose, right? There's so many purposes in life. And the what is kind of the manifestations of the different purposes that you find. Yes. And it doesn't mean that you have to have one overarching goal. But if you identify the main things that really drive you and make you want to get up and on Monday morning and just face the world, I think that if you find that, then it's just sweet.
Yes, I'm totally in agreement with you, Kavita. And I love what you mentioned in terms of the Japanese concept. I'm going to look into that more.
Yes, it's really a really interesting one. Mm-hmm. So that's wonderful. There's so many great pearls here, Karen. I just really appreciate it. We could talk a lot because we have so many common interests and so much to learn. And I really encourage women to listen to this advice because I just think there's so much untapped potential.
Yes.
Really. And that's really what gets me. It's like, no, you can do this. You can do it. You have it. You can do this. And I just feel like just taking them and holding their hand and saying, you can do this. And I really, truly believe that they can. So.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah. So maybe you can tell our audience a little bit about if there's anything special that you're doing right now and where we can find you and Curtis as well. And
sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, the best place to find us currently is on Facebook. Actually, we have a Facebook group community called Getting Ready for Your Empty Nest. So we would love to have anyone find us there. Also, you could connect with us there through our personal profiles. We do offer one-to-one coaching, and also sort of the treasure that we really love is our group coaching program. Because, as you've mentioned, Kavita, it's so easy to feel alone and like we're not going through this with someone else. And so it's just can be very inspiring to walk the journey with other women who are having the same insights and have the same vision. So that's where we are.
Fantastic. Yes, and we'll have all the links, all your links to your Facebook group and everything in our show notes for sure. Yeah, I totally agree with you in terms of community. And I think whatever struggles you're going through or whatever transitions or changes are happening, if you find your tribe or people that you can connect with, it really makes it easier. And the world is a huge place. And what you're doing, what I'm doing is similar, but I totally believe that if we share these common messages, that it's just going to help more and more people. So
it's really true. It's really actually an honor to get to know people like you, Kavita, and feel like we're all out there advocating for this transformation.
Yes,
because it's so vital.
Yes.
And key to the world, really. There's so much, as you said, untapped potential in our lives.
Perfect. Is there anything you'd like to end with, or anything you'd like to say? Or
I don't have anything else except thank you for the conversation. It's been very enjoyable and fulfilling for me.
Thank you. Same here as well. And good luck with your coaching, and look forward to keeping in touch.
Me too.
Thanks, Karen.
I so enjoyed having Karen Herbert on our podcast, and we have so much to learn from her about dealing with the transition in our empty nest years, especially our changing relationships with ourselves and our loved ones, including our young adult children. Here are her key takeaways. Number 1, set an intention for the empty nest years. What are you waiting for, really? Be intentional in what areas of your life you want to create a new vision for yourself. Number 2, if we wait, we may miss those opportunities for greater vision, for major personal growth, to reconnect with ourselves, and to recreate purpose in a new way. Number 3, we all have obstacles and they are real, but we can't let them stop us from bringing out what we are meant to bring out to the world. This shift in perspective allows us to be creative in our approach and engage with opportunities which come our way. Number 4, our relationships with our young adult children changes. It's so important to create a vision of what that relationship will look like moving forward. 5, we need to relearn how to make wishes and goals. Learn how to dream again when we've forgotten how to dream. 6, as moms, rather than putting ourselves last or waiting till the end to fit our puzzle piece, let's be part of the mix. You are the piece of the puzzle. Our needs and desires are as important as everyone else's. Put yourself back in the mix. 7, we don't want to just fill the time. Be intentional about engaging with the transition and choose the things that are right and powerful for you, and not just the next thing. 8, the goal should be to have a healthy, loving adult relationship with our children. It's not about creating certain outcomes in their lives. It's so important for us to release control and allow them to be empowered to embrace their own outcomes. Number 9, young adults really hate it when, first, they are judged or they're feeling judged. Listen and respond without judgment. Ask curious questions rather than jumping in with your own opinions. And 2, they hate unsolicited advice. Ask permission before offering advice or opinions. 10, the foundation is finding who you are, why are you doing what you're doing, and what will you do to serve your purpose. Thank you so much for being here. You could be many places, and we so appreciate you taking the time for yourself, for your own personal growth. If you enjoy what we stand for at Power Purpose Play, you will love our newest offering. I reinvented myself after 50, and I'm giving you the exact framework and process I used to get where I am today. This is in a course called It's My Time Now: How to Rediscover Yourself in Midlife. It is about finding yourself again, and I am your guide on this incredible journey. All the details are in the links below, and I'm so excited to tell you that the doors to this opportunity are now open. Will you take the time for yourself? Our independent learning course is open on November 15th, and we are taking registration now. Our group coaching will begin in the new year, but you can also have me as your personal coach, guiding you through the process of rediscovery in private one-on-one sessions. As Karen so eloquently said, what are you waiting for, really? If you're wondering what's next in your life, I know I can help you figure that out. Till next week, my friend, in love and in light, take care.